lighting of the lamps, and it's pretty peaceful around here right now. I'm just checking to see. All right, I'm on. Okay, perfect. See, it got me earlier. I almost did another rendition of a few nights ago where I spent a bunch of time thinking that it was live, and it just like now, and it really wasn't. But here, my son showed me how to double check it, and so praise the good Lord. Anyway, so there's a little bit of filling I'd like to do here, and go back just a little bit before I go forward from the Martin. I call it the tragic Martin slaying. My beloved, precious Martin's blood was senselessly spilled, but I don't believe in vain. Like I said, he was loved by many, many people, more so than his mom ever would have imagined. So, before the Bob beating, before all the child rape against me just stopped, praise the good Lord, I had got into it with Bob, and ended up going to juvenile hall. Me and another kid. I don't know how much time he got, but I got 90 days. I think this was also part retaliation, which was coming down the pike. But I got 90 days. My mom and her new husband had just brought my stepfather's oldest son from Concord, California, because he was having issues down there, up to see if maybe his dad, Ted, my new stepfather, would be able to help him. While I'm in juvenile hall, he's also getting in trouble, and I hadn't really got a chance to meet him yet, but I'd heard about him while I was also doing my 90 days. And my mom was able to get me a pass 30 of the 90 days, even though I was a ward to the state, to go with them back down to Concord, California, with his to visit his first wife, my stepdad's first wife, and take Lester, the son that came up, along with his daughter Bonnie, who now was up, back down there. And the judge accepted, and I had already done 30 of my 90 days, and was going to get out to go down for the 30 and then have to come back and serve the rest of the 60. Well, while I was waiting, and this is all, of course, it's all pertinent, but that I went back because it's going to be extremely important when I do get to the point where I'm going to have to dip back, so you'll see how it all ties together. So I get out. Lester now, he's in trouble, and he's heading to Maple Lane, the same place I went, same place I found out my mom was sent when she was extremely young, because it was a school for girls, and along with my aunt Frankie, who Tammy was her child, and the whole correlation there, which to me is just completely mind-boggling, and just another indication that we do have a creator, and he definitely, he's a stickler about order. So I get out. Lester's in Maple Lane now. He almost dies from an overdose of wrong mushrooms. He's a California kid, and he ate the wrong mushrooms. He about died. So don't do that, you guys. I even ate a death cap mushroom thinking it was a portobello over here, and I've been, around mushrooms most of my life, and I went on a ride for like 3 days. Thank the good Lord, because I did. My son was like, this wasn't long before I had to turn myself into the dragon to go to lay some faith work. But yeah, it was just a blessing. So be careful when you're out picking them mushrooms, or if you're in an area that provides that. But so yeah, he almost died. So he's serving his time. I get out. We're heading down to Concord, and I'd never been to California. Like I said, I didn't know the visions that I had that I was sharing with my mom that kind of spooked her out about the fish tanks and the robot and stuff like that was actually in California. Why my mom and biological father were still together before he went to Vietnam. He was actually, that was those fish tanks were his sergeant's apartment, and my mom said I was so young that I shouldn't have remembered. And then of course, like I said, my dad, as far as I was concerned, had died, Fred. And we were his only children until, like I said, until he died. And then Freddie had his way with me in the little TikTok trailer, and that was revenge for him and Gary's botched candy heist when I got caught up at Wigwam. So, which if you need to, you just go back and check for anybody that's sticking it out with me, right? So. First time I said right on that one too. Anyway, so we're heading down to California, and we're in the back. This is me and Bonnie. Nothing going on. She was a few years older than I, and she had a boyfriend down there, and I was just, it was just, we played cards and stuff, and I didn't really get to see the scenery is what I was leading to. But some people might think, well, you you just get out of it and you're a young kid. No, that didn't happen. But I'll tell you, that trip is so significant later on down the road because of things that had taken place, being led and driven by faith. After the Lord spoke to me, well, He had spoke to me many times through, like I said, different people and Mother Nature, but through many different people, law enforcement, pastors, just people just coming up off the street that I'm certain now were probably angels, people in jail that, before I actually seen God's hand being manifested in someone's life, I would have never believed some of these people when they said, I'm an angel, and I would have laughed right at them. But it's almost like I knew that almost when I seen them. I started to recognize them. At first I didn't, and they would just come up and say, Jesus loves you or something like that. I just thought they were just Jesus freaks or something, weird, whatever. But now I know, and some of them were just led in the Holy Spirit, which. Well, they were, they're spirit-filled, so, God was speaking through them anyway. But I mean, just some that were they just appeared out of nowhere. So we're headed to California, and Concord, California, and it was quite an experience. And we end up, Bonnie stays there, we get back, I end up having to do my time, I get out, and that's when the stuff happened with Martin and all that stuff. And that was the last I'd ever, after that beating after the beating Bob took from Martin and Daryl, and my cousin Forrest really didn't. He was there. He was there. My Aunt Sue, and of course, one of many witnesses that never got called along with again, and I digress, and I'll let that go. But Kent Hitchings, who now is a state patrol, he pulled me over, just and let me go. He said, I'm going this way, you go that way. Didn't have a license, didn't have nothing. They sanitized. I've got a box, 7 pounds. That I was using just before I ended up handing myself over to the enemy. 7 pounds. You know, just the child rape, trafficking, just abuse, and mental, physical, and emotional, and just straight uh, obstruction of justice. All that aside, the paperwork that I have out here, that I got from the attorneys that just let the clock tick out, because the states, oh, they got to them. They got to them. They wanted to go against the Vatican, and they get money that way through the Catholic. I told you, my biological father, that's how I used them because of that. But mine, it would have hatched such a, a landslide, for lack of a better term. It would have, so many people would have, I believe, and still will, come out of the woodwork. And it's not to for revenge. It's to hold these people accountable so it won't happen again. These children are our children. All this stuff that happened to me, it's still happening right now. It's just a lot of these kids, they don't get the opportunity to speak out. You know, and the enemy, and he oh, I'll tell you. You know, you just keep singing the truth. You just keep singing the truth. You're going to find, it's going to find someone's ear and into their heart. Like I said, the Lord, He reconfigures all our words. It's when we stand out on faith. Just like Donut said. He was absolutely right. It's the most insignificant people that really spark not only my interest, but my deep gratitude and honor. I am truly for the underdog. I remember so many times, and I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but when I was getting pummeled by Pee Wee, when he was walking up catching the bus where he shouldn't be, I remember, and then it rained and the stick went down, and I chased him with the rock in El Kabong. You know, there was a retarded family of retarded children. I don't know if these, because the parents didn't seem retarded, so I don't know if they adopted these children or not, but I absolutely love these kids. Well, like I said, I started going to Woodside, which was, you know, it was special ed. And that just so happens where the retarded kids went also. And they didn't mix us with them. We went to different classes, but we were also special ed, and we were considered retarded. And one day I have never seen a person with Down cry. I've never. Now I'm sure it happens. I just have never seen it. But when I did, in line with our little, we had the old all-seeing eye, like the little pyramid milks that had the cheap paper straw and the tab that you pull off the top of the milk, and then the paper straw that slides in, and it's so cheap after just a couple little sucks it collapses on you. And I was holding one of them in my hand, looking at it, and I heard this, and I wasn't paying attention, but this kid made this Down syndrome kid cry, and I nailed that sucker so hard that I ended up, the principal, Mr. Rick, instead of making me get in trouble and everything and calling my parents, I know this is completely, because I could have got hurt going home. But this guy, he said, listen, you just go home for the rest of the day. Because I used to just leave school. I would just leave. I would just, you know, and he, you know, I would get in trouble for just leaving, but he knew I could walk home. And it was quite a little walk. You know, it was about 4 miles from Woodside there by the beginning of the runway, and I lived by Saltwater Park. But he said, you go home. But anyway, so I used to save all my Halloween candy. You know, it was the little cat, the Peter Chris, of course, a lot of us were. And I'd save some of my candy, and I would give it to those kids. And they would see me coming, and they would made me feel so good. They knew, they recognized me, and boy, I know when I clobbered that dude. But I've had many cousins that did that for me. You know, the neighbors would beat me up and stuff. The bigger kids that would, you know, be able to just, you know, drive me in like that railroad spike. My cut, you know, so I had people that have done that for me before, and so I knew what it was like to be a hero like that. So I was just for the underdog. But so we're in California. We come back. I do my time. All that stuff is over now. Now we're back to I get out of Green Hill. Martin gets mutilated. Paul goes to prison, and my brother and I. Now my brother meets Tammy, because my brother goes from Maple Lane to now Green Hill, and then now they're having co-ed AA meetings, and they're letting young ladies from the community, Lewis County, come, which is really odd, because that's where my sister passed away at, and that's where my where I just had to release my dad's body from the morgue at, actually, because he lived down in Morton, not far from Morton. And which I, like I said, you know, and I'm not. I need to add that to my tort claim, because I'm going for, you know, Obama put, and I'll try to get back on with what's going on with after his deal, because I'm going to be heading to Walla Walla soon and be seeing Omar and a bunch of people and Paul, and it's just things really just start to heat up, man. God is good. We have a faithful Creator. We really do. He loves you so much. He loves me, and that's why I'm doing this, because I love you guys, man. It's going to be just fine. It's going to pass. We own it all. You have to. You don't have to believe it, but I do, and I'm here to try to earn your trust. Do my best to earn your trust, so that you'll see everything I'm telling. You can check it all out. I got people that'll back it up. There's a reason why they're trying to shut me down, guys. That's it. Just a Sabbath-keeping, evangelic message, you know, mail-passing messenger. Just, if you don't like what you get, return to sender. That's what the Lord has said. That's who you are, son, and you're no more and no less. Until I give you the memo, you give it as you get it, and you stay as humble as you can, and watch me move in your life, and watch me use you to move in other people's lives, and they're going to do the same for you. And I've already seen it when I was watching Tor. I watched it. It was amazing. It was so amazing, guys. I'm telling you, I'm watching it manifest itself. And just the health. People are wanting to get like ABL. People really want to get healthy, and it's not even a dig on anybody that's unhealthy. It's not that at all. This is not that you're unloved at all, man. I'm the first one. Look at some of my pictures I'm going to show you. Oh my goodness, when I was in Florida and I was working in the kitchen, when I got a little self-worth, I was like, well, yeah, you're still a good-looking dude, but I was a walrus. That's no way to live. I want to live. I want to try to get my 120, baby. I want my $120. Some people might say, well, that you're you're shooting awful high. Well, you're right. But look at everything that look at everything I've been through. Look at all. It's just, the Lord already told me, I'm going to restore all the locusts have eaten. I've already seen things in my own personal life, physically, even though, like I said, my back and my hands and all that stuff. But my bro Forrest was saying, you know, and we're full blood. He's like, yeah, your dad, he was out there, and his hands were just like, and that runs on both sides of our family. Bro, that's just something we have to deal with. And like I said, I've had a bad back. I used to wake up in Mission Creek in tears, and I never cried. And in that 8-man deal, before I escaped from there, me and Rod Jones, my arms were already so toasted from running saw and flip-flopping logs and stream and just stuff excruciating, running a devil bar into frozen ground when you're up, you know, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, and it's still frozen, and you're having to scrape the ground to try to break through into some dirt so that you can plant a tree. And you're getting paid, you know, 6-7 cents a tree. It just depends. So you 2 tags on a bag, and you split them between 2 guys. You ain't making much money like that, and you're busting yourself up. My arms were. It felt like somebody stuck a metal straw in my hands, and they just. Oh man, I would hang them over the bunk. Excuse me. I would hang them over the bunk, beloved, and they would just. And sometimes it would subside. It would soothe. It would stop. But it was just like the worst. You know, when your arms go to sleep, it was the worst like that. It was like it was and I've had surgery. That's where I got all that stuff. I just told you I just threw in my closet in my deal. I wasn't trying to glorify myself. I didn't know people did those oxys. Of course I know they shot him stuff. I didn't know you could smoke them. And he said they're better than sex. I'm like, this couldn't be possible. It's a pill, and you're talking about putting it on foil, and it's better than sex. Now see, and so, but that's where I got those. Is from the thing is where I'm going with that. My surgeries, and once I moved out, once I came back up here, you know, I was supposed to get the other side done from just all the beating I took as a kid. So my point is that I've been dealing with the back and all that, so I just do it, just like any kind of depression, which I don't ever think I've ever suffered from. They said you basically have major post-traumatic stress. Just like Chris said, you just have to learn how to deal with it. We all, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how bad when you stick it out with me and see how you're gonna see life's just beginning. It's just starting, people. This is just a chance for you to get that thing going. That, like, for me personally, it's I gotta make myself start my push-ups and stuff like that. But anyway, back on track. So Obama, $50,000, and then I'll go back to going to prison to $50,000. He put a cap on the false imprisonment because he knew that all these people were going to be, and more people were going to be falsely imprisoned. He knew. Why would he lower it to $50,000? It used to be where they would give you whatever they seen fit, up to an extent. You know, I think there was a committee that would do it. But now it's $50,000. So you better believe, and I'm not doing this to be vengeful. I'm doing it because they need to be held accountable, and I want to be able. I need some cash. I need to get rolling. Look at they, and it's a blessing. They weren't even gonna let me out. So yeah, 50,000 plus. I had to bury my dad. I had to release him to. You know, if I would have been out, I would have did all I could. I get it. They don't have the money to, and I don't, and it doesn't. You know, I understand. But I would have done what I could, and what I'm saying is that I couldn't, so that needs to go on the bill. That's part of the bill. And I didn't even get to grieve over that. What was I going to do? To ask my roommates, and that where are you going to go, right? So that was an issue in itself. And again, I'm not complaining, and it might sound like I am, but it was really tragic to hear my daughter. She didn't even want to tell me. She said, "Look," she was trying to get me to call her mom, and I already knew. I said, "He died," and she broke down. I broke down right there in the big yard, you know. And then I went right back out to my three deals, and I just. You know, you can only do so much out there. If you people that don't know you, you know, they might think that's a sign for, you know, You might have a candy bar sitting on your pillow when you get back to yourself. No, I'm just kidding. They don't. Well, I'll tell you, I got a lot of stories for when I. But yeah, I'd never. That's some nasty stuff. People fucking. Excuse my language. Oh, I'm gay for the States. I said, you know what? That's why I say this. Pitching is catching. I don't know what ball game you think you're playing. It's the same sodomite softball, you idiot. I couldn't even get a route. I'm serious. That stuff makes me sick. I thank the good Lord that I didn't even come close to becoming what these sickos wanted me to be. And I'm telling you, I can't wait. We are winning. They're still counting. I told you, they're counting the thought. They're counting all the thought towards everything that Trump was representing in our state of his union with us, the saints. It's not that we don't welcome his coming. There's more souls. And when we fan that flame, that three kindled coal, right? That was it. He's like, and the angels started to rejoice, and that he said, okay. And he started hearing those direct prayers. It's not that the indirect ones aren't important. That's not it. But once you start hitting that advanced level where your prayers are going straight to Yeshua, Abba, Yahweh, when it goes right to our Heavenly Father, right there, and you start wrestling with Him, just like 10th Planet. Do you see how when you wrestle, it's so unviolent, but yet it's harmonious and it's athletic, and it's faith building, and it's relationship building, and it's so many different things. Sure, like she said, once you got a good whack, it was on. But you know what? They didn't. I guarantee they didn't go away all angry and butthurt. And that's not. And they didn't go away with their bells being so completely rung. They're going to be in a vegetated state in 20 years. Where they're really no good to the Lord at all, for the sake of what? Pride and ego? No, this is good. And this wrestling is good. So anyway, here I am. Ron meets Tammy at the AA meetings it encourages the kids to go to AA, which is good. But he was only going for, and I said that's the downfall for having, just like me with Shantae when I was in the treatment center, that and that other girl, and I got pissed, thinking, excuse my language, thinking that these people, they're just trying to control me. Now I understand why you don't, when you're in treatment, you don't want to be thinking about some girl, and that's exactly what us men do. And the girls, they're thinking about us too, but I'm going to tell you, man, they're not thinking about us like we're thinking about them. Yes, but these, we're just, man, you got to think about, yourselves when you're not thinking about yourselves, and you're killing yourself. Sometimes you got to stop and think about yourselves and not think about, what the good Lord has blessed us with when it comes to the female form, mind, and just straight intelligence, because they are. So I understand, and I get that. But there it was. It got my brother there. They met, and I moved in with them. They ended up getting an apartment there in Sumner, and I was up to no good. Of course, I was really always up to no good. Completely dysfunctional. Did not have God, no God. Although along the way there, a whole book could be written just on the fact that the Lord had been you know, he had been knocking at the, the, the door of my heart. And he'd been using people, you know, just like you. Um, and, you know, come as you are. Like I said, you never know. So I was staying with Ron and Tammy, and they hadn't had little Anthony yet, little Tone Loke, and certainly they hadn't had Andrew yet, but they hadn't had Anthony, and I actually I stayed down with her and them in Alden, which was the hugger, and Karma, which was the mother, and I didn't know until later. They adopted Tammy, and Bubby, she called him, her brother. She was adopted, and I found out later that yeah, the dad, you know, this Mr. Huggy wasn't you know, very foster or adopted daddy material to Tammy either. And I stayed down there with them, and down when they were off that Bishop Road with Ribeye just a little bit. But then they got their own place up there in Sumner. And me and Ron, we ended up getting busted in a burglary. And they'd shut down all the whole southeast Auburn. We'd cased out the house, broke into it, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was a weapon involved because there was a weapon in the house that was being stolen, and because, and I'm not going to say why because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but we didn't do what we were supposed to do, and we deviated from a certain plan, and it was probably it was meant to be, and somebody came by, the people that were on vacation, daughter that was heading to work, Boeing to be precise, seen that there was a vehicle that was supposed to be somewhere else that was in the driveway that shouldn't have been there, and parked behind it, and was digging for her keys to open the door to see what was going on, because her parents were on vacation as far as she was concerned, you know. And because of that weapon that was in that house, which was a pistol, and because somebody came there, they charged me with me and my brother with the first degree burglary. And there's a lot of stuff that happened in between then, because we ended up running. She didn't get hurt or nothing. She actually asked us, "What are you guys doing?" She said it so casually. I almost wanted to say, "Okay, let's get this." I almost wanted to say, "Well, we're here to repossess this stuff here. So, if you don't mind, if you can either step out of the way or help me with this, please." But she looked, and I had the pistol and some other stuff, a bag of jewelry that was in a pillowcase. And this little lioness, we were trying to leave, and she snapped. She jumped on my back, and we ran down the road, and she ended up falling off. We ran down to my cousin's house, and they had southeast Auburn completely just cut off. They had Zeus, big old Rottweiler, looking for us, and then the King County canine looking for us, Federal Way. Well, anyway, we were looking at like 10 years for a first degree burglary, but once the DA was actually fair, and you know, realized what was going on and read the report and everything and talked to the witnesses, they offered us a year and a day, because we didn't try to hurt anybody or anything like that. It was just we were just dumb and shouldn't have been in somebody else's home. And you know, of course, I've had my house broken into, and it's one of the worst things that you could possibly have happen, and I completely just that's something I would never entertain. Um, so yeah, so now I'm heading to Shelton with my brother. We get both get a year and a day, and you do like 8 months on a year and a day. If you get good time, you don't get in trouble. And I was already starting to have trouble because even though I had done time before, I was a little worried. It was my first time in adult system, and it was my first time in an adult system, and they separated me and my brother. And they separated me and my brother because they claimed that if he had a problem, I'd have a problem, and vice versa, and they couldn't have that. Well, here's two really young. I mean, it's this was 1990, so I was I don't know, probably 20, 21, 21, 22 maybe. Yeah, I think so. I was young, and so I was just I'm a little guy. You know, I even completely just ripped. I'm 165 pounds. We're not we're not big Irishmen, man. So that's that's not it. And I was thinking, well, I couldn't possibly be a threat to you. Some of these, the goon squad, they were monsters, and then these other guys, you know, no, no. If you have a problem, then no. So we're gonna move you. So I was already bent out of shape. I was nervous that I was in prison. It was my first time in adult system. They were separating me from my brother. And I was actually, there's R1, 2, and 3, the receiving, the Shelton, the place I was telling you about. That's just it just reeks of evil. It's where there is definitely a portal there that they tap into there at the Capitol and all that. Believe it or not, you can believe it or not. It doesn't matter, but they do. It's extremely evil. They use that because there's the worst of the worst coming through there. Oh yeah, we got prisons for a reason. It's just that unfortunately now they've built so many now it's become completely just a whole different market. But yeah, there's some pretty evil hombres that go through there and need to be right where they're at. But so now I'm separated from my brother. We all get TB tests. We all get a little TB test under the skin, you know, and of course my phobia, and I don't really care too much for that, but they have a long breeze in Shelton. Everybody that's been to Shelton knows. Oh, still beating, baby, for you, still beating. So I'm walking down this long breeze, and I'm looking at this bump on my arm. And I'm thinking about, you know, I'm separated now from my brother, and I don't know where I'm going to get classified to. And, you know, I'm just completely just hating life because of what I've, you know, made of myself. But don't know how to love myself enough to do something about it and stick with it, you know. It all starts out fine and dandy, but without no real good solid foundation and a constant maintenance of spiritual food and that fluent tea, water, liquid. You know, be a good host and hostess. It's just that simple. I was just lost. I had no idea. You could have given me all the tools in the world, but if I didn't believe that I was worthy enough to use them, it didn't matter. And I could have faked it for a little while, but eventually it gets caught up with. That's why a lot of these people out here that have all this stuff, they live completely in misery, and they're taking none of it with them. Like my mom, and putting her complete life into Boeing, and I understand the financial stability of it. But when you put other people and responsibilities on the back burner, that becomes your god, and it causes generational uh, uh, deficit. That's why it says it to the third and fourth generation. And that's why we suffer with a lot of stuff. So here I am, prison. I'm butthurt. I got a bubble in my arm of the virus. Got the old corona. And about, I don't know, a few days later, in our units, it's like this. It's in the R units, it's R1, 2, and 3, and there's 2 tiers, and there's like maybe 10 cells per tier. So, and 2 people per cell. So, 40, maybe 60, maybe there's 15 or whatever, maybe cells long. Anyway, there's 2 tiers high on both sides of each uh, R unit, and then on that side there's 2 more on that, and that makes up 1 R unit. If you go to Google aerial photos, or Google Earth, or whatever we want to call it, but that's what it is. You'll see them. You'll see they might have it blurred out now, but you'll see it how it's laid out, and it's kind of significant. It's almost like them 3 children at Ruth Eichmann Center in a way. Anyway, R1, 2, and 3, and like I told you, I was in R2 D2. So I'm in my cell, and they check the reaction, if there was one, to the TB test, and the nurse says, "Oh, well, yours is positive." And I said, "Positive? What do you mean? What's that mean?" She goes, "Well, you'll have to wait until you see the doctor. I'm not authorized to tell you." But I started to panic. And I was like, "What do you mean? You're not authorized. You're a nurse, and you're able to read this, but you can't tell me." She goes, "But I can give you a brochure, and you got to go back down that long breezeway, go back to your deal, and then we'll call you down, and the doctor will explain everything to you, because we got to get a chest X-ray and stuff." But none of this was making sense to me, and I overreacted. I know I did. Because as I'm walking all the way down that breezeway, all I kept thinking is, and reading this old, extremely old, out-of-date brochure, that I'm going to die, that I got this lung deal, and I'm going to die of some kind of, weird emphysema type lung deal. And maybe it was partly the lack of comprehension from my maybe I wasn't understanding what I was reading too, in all fairness. But I was panicking. You probably couldn't see it, but inside I was thinking, I'm going to die of this stuff, and it's not going to be very comfortable. So I don't want to drown. I'd never really, burning and drowning, that's why that's not happening to me. This is all ours, man. So, yeah, I get to my cell, R2D2, and they say, "Steen, lock up, get the doors." They have these levers that pull the doors up, because they're old. they would manually, they're done by electric also, but they can manually move them in case they have an electric outage or whatever. But they said, Steen, lock up. And I said, I really need to speak to the doctor. And they said, Steen, lock up. Now again, this was my first time in prison. Excuse me. Pardon me, people. So it was my first time in prison, although it wasn't my first time being locked up, and I knew what it meant to follow an order. But I was gonna learn, just like the Ron White, just how important it was gonna be that I followed this particular order. Because when I didn't lock up right away, this guy came over, and I was trying to explain to him why it was that I couldn't lock up, and he did something he probably shouldn't have done. As a matter of fact, I know he shouldn't have. He put his hand on the back of my head, and of course there's the people that weren't asleep, because it wasn't a big enough commotion that would get everybody up, because like I said, it's small quarters, it's long halls, everything's small quarters. And a matter of fact, when Cellivision comes on, and I call it Cellivision like television, because when well, many of us call it that, but when it gets dark, just like old Murphy looking at his fat belly and Rod not knowing, and if he would have thought about it, he would have realized that when it's light in your house and it's dark outside, it's a mirrored image. So we call it Cellivision because you can see all the way down you can see right down to the cell 1 from 12 or 15 or however many it is. He grabs the back of my hair, and there's a few people standing up watching now, and I just instinctively just like that. I didn't try or mean anything, just instinctively, and he caught it right on the side of the eye, and he stumbled to one knee and got up and walked down to the end of the tier, and I went into my room, and my door didn't shut. Usually it shut. You know, to me it was just it was a mutual thing to me. I didn't even really get a chance to think about it, but later on I was thinking, well, wait a minute, man. He grabbed my deal. It was instinct, you know, but that's not how they seen it. And of course, you know, it wasn't right. Either of us. But I said, hey guys, you know, because everybody's so close, you know, and we all talk and stuff too, you know. But if everybody's sleeping and stuff, we kind of try to be quiet because it echoes, right? But there's times at night it gets loud until it's time for everybody to go to bed. And I go, hey man, how come they ain't shutting my door? They go, Steen, they're coming to get you. And right about that time, I hear this, and this was and looking back now, I know it was psychological, but it didn't have to be psychological, because just like Ron, I didn't know how many, but they were going to use however many it was going to take, however many they were going to, and it wasn't going to take many because I wasn't a big, and these dudes were monsters. These dudes were big. The Goon Squad in Shelton, these boys are big. And probably eating demonic donuts. So they're dunking devil donuts. They marched up because there's stairs. Our child's down below, and it comes to you from the main deal because they do have a Shelton population, but the real evil is in that our part before everybody goes off to wherever. And some people, you know, don't go to, because they're not all, you know, they're just there doing a sentence. But until you figure out who's who, you know, you can you're mixed up with some real unsavory characters, and you can feel it. You can feel the evil. So they come marching up them stairs, and they were all in gear, and there was like 6 of them, and the last one had a big long big camcorder. Like back then, that was just what they had, VCR type camcorder, the ones I used to swipe, that were way over expensive looking back now. But I mean, that's just how things are. Technology, when it first comes out, but it was just ridiculous to think people were paying that much. So, and no pun intended, because I know somebody's thinking, well, you didn't pay. So, well, I'm paying, and I paid, and I. So they're coming down the tier, and now I'm thinking, oh man, it's too late. Now I'm in shock, and the two in front have got this shield that's this way, and it has handles on it, and he rams my little butt right up against the back of the R unit, the wall. He slams me, and the other one grabs my legs and pulls my legs out from under me, and they just flip me over. Oh, they're filming the whole thing. You know, they have to, because they've been sued and stuff like that. So it's kind of a win-win in that sense. And they hog-tied me and pulled me back down the stairs and took me to IMU, Intensive Management Unit, and that place was as clean as it was, like a hospital. It was like a hospital. You didn't move anywhere. You got out 1 hour a day. They unlocked your little flap and would roll around with the tray. And because so many people in there, some real unsavory characters would throw just some real nasty stuff on the officers. If you weren't standing at a line that was at the back of your little cell that you were in 23 hours of the 24-hour day cycle, if you weren't there when that cart rolled up, it would go right past you. They didn't want you nowhere near that flap. Once that cart stopped, if you were there, they would stop. You would then come on. You would come up. Then you would grab your thing and whack. They would shut it real quick, because people, like I said, they would just do some. I'm not even going to explain. You already probably know. Of course, I never did stuff like that. I would never. Like I said, there was a reason why I was going to tell you about it being shit eaters, and it's nasty, and there's just people that do sick stuff like that. But then there's some people that do that because that's a ritual, and more people than you think do that stuff. But you'll see soon enough. They're already losing the frosting. It's melting just like a candle to the flame. So. Here I am in IMU. I'm 2 weeks. I go to my hearing. I fill out a grievance. I try to get people in my unit, or not unit, who that seen the deal to be a witness. I had like 2 or 3 of them that were going to write statements. Which they're really happy to do, being there, because everybody's against the man. It gives them something to do anyway. They ain't got nothing to do. But they seen what the guy put his hands on me first, and I went to the hearing, which is just right down in IMU, and they have you handcuffed. You don't move anywhere unhandcuffed, even to the shower, which is just right down the deal. They open your flap, same flap with the food. You put your hands out. They cuff you up. They shut that deal, then they signal, the door opens, you come out handcuffed, 2 of them walk you to the shower, you shower, you go right back in, then your hands come out, they uncuff you, they shut the deal. You go for your hour out, right at the deal, the same thing. So you're handcuffed, I'm in the hearing, and he says, well, it's your first time here, and he says, I see you have statements here, and he says, but and you requested that my officer be here, and he says, but he's busy. He says, but I pretty much already made my decision, and it didn't go well. I got an attitude, and there was one officer sitting right next to me, tiny little room there in IMU, a little hearing room, and he says, I've already made my decision, Steen. You just got your trouble. He says, so what do you think about that? And I went to stand up. You can, when you stand up, they'll grab your arm like this, and you would probably say your piece, and then you'd walk back to your deal. Well, he was kicking back with his feet up on the desk, and this is a very, very small room. This is not a big room, and it's really small. And looking back now, I'm sure for a reason. And this older fellow, I was able to get my foot. I said, well, he goes, what do you think about that? He took a bunch of good time, and he was considering closing my custody. And he said, so what do you think about that? And I said, well, and I stood up, and I reached over with my foot and just caught the tip of his foot that was crossed on the desk, and it flipped. He fell back, and that old dude tried to get me, because they'll have two guys, but I'm a little guy, so they probably just sent the old guy down, and he's trying to, and they got protocol. Usually these boys they're big, but he tried to get me down. He couldn't, and here they come again. Oh, they beat me, and this time they pulled me hogtied up the stairs. So I get a bag. It's finally time. And then, I'm learning about fishing and listening to all the hardcore people in there and stuff. And there's some people, and then you see people coming and going from fights and all this and that, and it's just a mess. I mean, you hear stuff, and I get my bag. And when you get your bag, it's a paper sack with your institution on it when you get classified. So the night before, because they don't tell you when you're leaving, they'll tell you the night before, just like they were supposed to when I was in Walla Walla this last time around. They're supposed to come the night before for security reasons and tell you, look, you're leaving tomorrow. Here's a bag, here's a box. You pack your stuff up. You're going to court, or you're going back to Shelton, or you're going to Monroe for medical, like Ridgeway did, and my brother Shane got his stuff, and we put him on that eBay store in South Center, and they loved that until the supervisor found out. And I think someone from DOC called him and said, "You get that stuff off there." It was around Halloween, man. They said, "Oh, it's gonna go great." They had us running down there. Anyway, so I get my sack, and they go, "Steen, did you get a?" Everybody's like, "Hey, did you get a bag? Everybody wants to know if they got a sack, because if they're getting the hell out of where they're at. Steen, did you get a sack? I said, I did. And they said, well, what does it say? It says WSP. They says, oh, you're going to Walla Walla, Steen. I says, I don't want to go to Walla Walla. They says, yeah, but you are. You're going to Walla Walla. I said, it doesn't say Walla Walla. It says WSP. They said, Steen, that's what Walla Walla is. It's Washington State Penitentiary. And I said, oh, no. I did not sign up for this. I swear, if you just get me out of this one, God, I promise. Of course, you just got you kind of reap what you sow. So I'm on the chain bus, and I'm heading to Walla Walla, and lo and behold, who do I see? Paul Lawson. There he is. There's Paul. Steen. I'm there in getting my state-ish stuff, and it's Paul Lawson. He just, he just got done hacking up my friend, but he didn't know. He absolutely didn't even know, and I mean, I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to respond. He was just like, because we were buddies, and part of me, and I'd be lying, and the Lord is helping me with this, but part of me, guys, believes if Paul knew, because Paul knew my brother and everything, and he, even though he was a big strong dude, he every people had respect for certain people, whether you could take them or not. There was just certain respect for certain people, and I truly believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that if Paul knew that Martin was our family friend, and then he seen him up on Hilltop, and seen him and said, "Hey, what's up, Martin?" Or found out later on, if Frankie would have said to him, "Hey, man, you know my nephew Donnie? Yeah, Donnie Steen." You see, instead of sending him back to the car, because he killed him just a night or so after that when he left from my aunt's house, because that's where they went to go get some crank, and he wanted to smoke up the last of that $100 in his pocket, and that's when he killed him. But it all ties together. Look, and he didn't even know him, but in my heart I carried that around, believing if he, and part of me still kind of believes that. That's what's, and this has happened, and it's a tragedy, but I've been around a lot more than this, even death, and it's just, that's why I want you people to know that's even been in the military, and man, that God loves us, and he can help us with that post-traumatic stress. I suffer from major post-traumatic stress, but I don't have any symptoms anymore, really. I've never really had depression. I don't drink. I haven't drank in 5 years. This is the longest I've been sober, and ever, and that combined of any time in my life ever. I was more drunk in prison. I made more damn booze in prison than I ever drank on the street. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but that was the place for me to really run amok. So it can be done. It can be done. I'm trying to kick the smoking weed. I went back to that when I got out. But I didn't smoke when I was in, because there was some things that I had to do, and I couldn't cloud my mind. And the Lord's like, "Son, if you just get rid of this, I will show you things that I'm showing you things now, but you're just," and I know I need to do it. I know, I don't like my grandson, knowing Papa's going to take a puff. It's just, it's just not, it's like I said, and I would have never said this before, but I've been involved in, I've been around almost every aspect of weed, marijuana, medical marijuana, and other, and, recreational. And smoking it is for your head, and it can be very addicting and debilitating. Eating it is for your body and is very therapeutic, and can help you with not only moods and glaucoma and women's cramps, and people that have, and I'm not advocating drinking, but hangovers and all nausea. It just goes on, and cancer. I had a black mole right here, and I was putting my own organic oil I was making, that I was putting in my candy, on that mole, and it just lightened up. And they were going to talk about, man, we were going to have to look at this, keep an eye on this, the doctor said, because it's getting dark. But so I'm here in Walla Walla. Paul's like, "Hey, what's going on, Steen?" And I'm trying to work that out. "Hey, not much, and then I'm seeing all kinds of other people, and I get to 8 wing, same wing that I was just in right now, except back then it was closed custody, because I got my custody closed, and I no longer have. Now, my brother didn't get in any trouble, and he's usually always the one that gets in trouble. He's usually always the one that's getting in fights, getting this, getting that. But because his year and a day, and he didn't lose any good time, he only had 8 months to do, so he was eligible to go to work release. So he was working up there at forgot the name. Anyway, he was at Progress House in Tacoma. While I'm in Walla Walla, and I would have been the same place he was at working, because I had less than a year. Because a year and a day, you only do 8 months with good time, but I just lost mine. And on top of losing my good time for my ignorance, because it really was. I guess I probably should have let the guy just grab the back of my hair, right? And then all these people see it, and then maybe think they could do that to me, and maybe try to punk me in the shower or something. I don't know. So I guess, we both made the wrong decision, and in some ways we both made the right decision. I guess it's a matter of perspective and perception. So here I am, Walla Walla. I'm in 8 wing. 8B9. Now they're not putting me on the top tier because Hilliard, which was the goon squad sergeant, and people that had been in 8 Wing back in the day, knows Sergeant Hilliard, and he's like, Steen, he was the sergeant in 8 Wing at the time. He used to be the goon squad sergeant, but now he was just 8 Wing sergeant. He says, you're coming to my wing, and he says, I'm not putting you on a top tier. He goes, you know, it's one thing to assault a DOC officer one time, but here I see, because when you get to Walla Walla, and when I got there, I was like, holy smokes, I thought Shelton was something. This place, man, you could feel the evil before I got off that deal. And there, it's a whole nother world. But anyway, and so what you do is you go through a fish tank. They're called the fish. You're in your jumpsuit, and you stay out of population, and they kind of do their own little evaluation on you to see what wing you're going to go to. So he gets to mine, Hilliard. He says, you know, I'm the 8 Wing sergeant, and I'm looking at your stuff here, and you know, it's one thing to assault a correction officer once, but here 3 times? Now, I'd only done it twice, and I didn't do a very good job, and I got my ass kicked really good, okay, for both of them. But here, the way he's talking, and I didn't stop him, I just shut up and let him talk. I know it might be hard to imagine, but I do know when to do that at times. He says, but 3 times, Steen. He says, that's a little concerning. So you're going to mine, and here's the deal. We're not going to have any trouble. If you have an issue with my officers, he says, you come talk to me. Now, my head's, he literally, and I told him this later on, and I told Sanchez when I was there, because I'd known Sanchez from 90 when I was there this time. That's why he's like, you changed. I can't believe it. And you're way different than your brother. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So he says, but 3 times. He says, so if you have a problem with my officers, you come talk to me. And my head's just, I'm just this little guy, right? I'm just this little old dude, right? You come talk to me. I'm going to keep you on the bottom tier. You're not going to the top tier. We don't want no one flying off the tier. This is what he's saying to me. I've already seen some of the monsters that are walking pain line here, right? And I'm like, dude, is he this guy? So I go to 8 Wing, 8B9, right in front. Oh, and then he says he's putting me in front of the bubble, which is an observation booth, which 8 Wing still has it. They don't use them. It's just a little, it's kind of like the mop closet that I shimmied up like a ringtail lemur at Mission Creek. And they sit in it and they observe the tier, and that's how they open up all the cells when you put your sign out. That's how you indicate to the controller to open up your cell door. So here I'm just getting my bedroll, and everybody's looking at all the new fish that's come in off the chain. And I've already seen, like I said, Paul, the one that, you know, tragically, you know, did away with my beloved friend Martin. And the door opens up, and they said, okay, go ahead down to 8. And before I even got to my cell, Omar was up on the top chair, and he said, hey, Steen, man, what's up? How you doing? I said, pretty good. Hey, how's Scrappy? And I said, he's all right. And he said, come out to Big Yard. And he started throwing me some we call them Zooms and Whams, candy bars and stuff, and I'm picking them up real quick, you know, because, you know, when you're in Shelton, you don't get a whole lot of anything. You know, you're not, just stuff like that. When you finally get to your parent institution, you got some good grub. And so you're grabbing it, you know. And so I get to it's 8 Wing B tier, 8B9, 9 house. I mean, it's 8. I was in 8B9, and my BA numbers is 976021. Which, if people know the number, they'll know I had one of the older school numbers. Not a 2 or a 3, but, you know, a 9. Not a recycled number yet. Oh, well, they might be recycling now. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So I open up my sign. I step in. First thing, this big old biker dude says, you got any paperwork? which again, it's my first time in, but I kind of understand the lingo, and I'm like, well, if this isn't paperwork enough, I just had all this stuff fall off the tier. I didn't pull this stuff out of my, you know, pocket. But I wasn't getting smart. This dude, this was a small cell. These were 4-mans. They're, well, not, they weren't really designed for 4-mans, but they had 2 bunks. You know, one on top, they had 4 men in them. Now they're 3 men, but back then they were 4. Same exact cells, same wing, and small. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared. And I don't get scared of anything, but I'm being honest, because this big old biker, Bear was his name. And like I said, I grew up around bikers. I knew Foot and Robin, a bunch of them, you know, from the Jokers and Rez and Gypsies, and you know, all the Bandit, all of them, couple Angels. And so, but you know, it's his house. But there's 2 guys, and I don't want it. You know, so I just went ahead and I put my bedroll up there. I made my bed, and I just got up there with my little Ozooms. I didn't even eat anything, and I was reading a paperback book that I had. I think it was a Lewis Lamar, because I didn't really read a whole lot of anything. And I sat up there, and I heard Omar again. Hey, Steen. I said, yeah. He said, make sure you go to Big Yard. And I said, all right. And it's kind of loud, you know, and so the door racks, and I go out to Big Yard. And I'd see a bunch of people. Like I said, I grew up in the institution, and a good 27% of the ones that hadn't been, you know, tragically killed or murdered were right there. Right there, walking 8-wing, Big Yard, close custody. Hey, Steen, what's up, Steen? Well, anyway, Omar was out there, and Paul said, hey, what's up? And hey, what's up? But because I wasn't so enthusiastic about our, you know, he didn't know. He had no idea. He's still, until he sees this, he's not going to know. But I met him again, but I won't get too far ahead, when I was in Reading. That's right. He only got so much time. But I mean, hey, if a person's going to, you know, who am I, right? What do? You can't do nothing to bring the guy back. It's tragic. I love the guy. I'd see what he did for me with Bob and all that. He used to take me into his house. The guy was awesome. I loved Martin. Guy Martin Hansen. Wind beneath my wings. And he always said, like I said at his parties, when I die, and everybody said, quit saying that. But I'm saying, guys, when I die, I want you guys all to wear rock shirts to my funeral. And we did. And his mom couldn't believe it. She's like, I can't believe he had that many friends. Well, that's because, sweetheart, you didn't know the parties that he threw at your house when you was out at your real estate things happenings. So, but he helped me out a lot. He helped out a lot of people. He was awesome. Taught me a few things about cars, and just helped out a lot of people. So here's Omar, and he knows me. He knows me well. And he finally graduated to close custody. And because after he kicked that car door off, you know, they manifest injustice on him and sent him up, just like Trey Barnes. Same thing with him. For you know, basically O&A, they called it, I think, back then. Just like it was basically human trafficking. That's what I think it boils down to. Like I said, I would never condone these days. I was just completely ignorant as to what the full implication of what he was doing really was and is. So, here I am on the yard, and he's like, hey, what's wrong, little buddy? And I said, nothing. He goes, come on, man. You can lie to your mother, but not your brother. Come on, little buddy. I know something's wrong with you, man. I've known you for years, man. You know, I've known you longer than most of these fools in here. Don't lie to me. It's your cellmates, isn't it? Well, they called them roommates back then. We didn't call them cells back then. People spent a lot of time in here, and you just didn't call them. And there's a lot of things. I'll get to the little rules you wanted to follow. you needed to be brushed up on when first arriving at Wally World, or any closed custody in Washington State, as far as that goes. So he's like, "Don't lie to me." And he goes, "Who's your cellie? Who's your roommate?" And I said, "Dude, come on, man. I got to go back there with these dudes, man." But like the two, Walt Nagunst, whom him and I became later on. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so I don't want to be a flick snitch. But the other two, they didn't say anything. It was just Bear. And so he said, "Look," he says, "look, I know how it works here. I've been here, and he says, I know you, and I love you, little brother." He says, I know you, and I know how it works. And I need to deal with this because it could get out of hand. You don't. This isn't Green Hill anymore." And he says, "No." And he found out. He found out real quick who he was. And he says, "Come on, come with me." And I'm like, "Oh, God, man. I now, forgive me, Father, for using your..." I said, "Oh, please." I didn't say Lord, but that's what I would be thinking now. Gosh, now I got to go back there to that cell with these guys. And it's not that I was a punk or anything, but I mean, hello, I'm fresh in Walla Walla. And so I he says, "You see this?" He went right up to Bear with like basically not holding my hand, but I was following him with my head like Tom Dooley. It was hung low, and he says, "Hey man," this guy right here. He says, "This your roommate right here?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, this guy right here," he says, "I am his paperwork." This is what Omar's saying to Bear. And Omar's a pretty big guy, but he has to look up to Bear. He goes, "You know how it works. You know how," when he's talking to Bear now, he's not calling by, he goes, "You know how it works here. You know they don't get their paperwork. We ain't run into," because it used to be where they were doing all the paperwork. But things had just changed over, where now the DOC workers were starting to do it because a lot of people were dying, and because they just, you just weren't walking mainline in close custody in Walla Walla. I'm going to tell you that right now. And if you either had paperwork, because there's too much going on. You could snitch on you could bring down a big old empire while you're you ain't walking mainline unless you got paperwork or you got someone vouching for you. Like I could have had, like I said, and I'm not bragging, 27% of that big yard. And 8 wing. That was just 8 wing. Not to mention all the other wings of people that once they found out I was in there. Because of my brother too. So there was 2 Steens. And we are the same, cut from the same cloth, so we had some sort of clout. Not like I'm saying with otherwise I would have just dealt with Bear myself, in the sense that we were trustworthy and had relationships built with these people that now were in a position to help me out. Whether I was a punk or not, there's just, you just ain't doing this here. They play for keeps here. Some people here, they're lifers, and you ain't coming in there. You ain't coming in before them and leaving, but you ain't coming in there after them and leaving before them. Is what I'm trying to say. No, you won't be leaving that the way you came in. So he says, you know, and I know, they don't get their paperwork. That's changed. So don't harass him. Here's the thing. He's not a punk, but if there's one, I've done, and then he started and he says, "Look, I don't even need to explain to you." He says, "Yeah, but you know," and he goes, "No, I've done time with this guy." And then he said, "Look, I don't even need to explain. I've got," like I said, if one hair on his head is messed up, if anything happens to this guy, me and the Skins, because he's native, he goes, "Me and the Skins, we're going to come roll that whole house up. So you better go tell them." And if I have to go, because he was like, "Who are your other ones?" He goes, "I'll tell them." Well, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was trying to act like, and in a way I was kind of getting pumped a little bit, but in a way I was getting a little bit too. The more the yard started to spin down, and you could stay out there late, and it was, I think it was summer. I think it was summertime back then. And you had people fighting praying mantises they'd catch on the wall and stuff. And this was the real deal. They were locked and loaded. The first one they say was rubber, and then people were getting stuck with welding rods and just some. So we were walking around the yard, and I'm kind of dreading going back to my cell. And he's like, "There's a few more things we need to go over before you go back." He goes, "You're going to be fine back there." And I said, he goes, "Look, if it's a fair fight, it's a fair fight. But like I said, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You are my paperwork. I know you're not a rat, and you're not a snitch, and you're not a rapo. So you're all good. But there's some things you need to know. Don't ever, little buddy, ever make a three-way call here. I don't care who it is, whatever. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't gamble. Don't gamble. Don't, even with your cellmates. Don't, unless you absolutely just don't do it. No gambling. You're not here long enough. No three-way calls. No gambling. No looking into anybody else's house. Never ever reckless eyeball into someone else's house. Ever. Never. You don't want to know anything you don't need to know, because if something happens, they're going to go, "Who knew?" That's why I don't. That's why a lot of times. That's why, baby, I don't go looking for a lot of stuff. I don't go sit and watch a lot of stuff over. I'm not cut like that. I've got enough faith, and I've got enough backbone to be sure about what it is I'm saying. I know myself enough today, and even when I was broken, I had enough damn self-worth. Even though it was depleted in a lot of areas. I had to have that, otherwise I would have got rid of myself a long time ago. So, but yeah, I get back to the cell. I get back after he brushed me up on the few little things. Oh, and the last thing was, don't ever tell anybody your release date. Never, ever, because they got date hangers. They got people that, like I said, don't want you to see you leave, that are there all night and all day, and they're psychotic. And if you say to them, if you even rub them the wrong way, when, "Hey man, I'm getting out," so you are, motherfucker. Who are you to, excuse my language, who are you to sit there and here, this guy's never getting out, and he's a stone cold killer, and he don't like you at all, and that was a wrong thing, and you find out when you ain't getting out. That's happened. So he said, don't ever do that. So anyway, I get back to the cell, to the room, and I'll be wrapping it up in a minute, son, and then you can come in here. Yeah, I don't know where it's at. Michael probably took off with it. You know how he is, son. Anyway, excuse me. So I get back, and he's like this up against the sink, which, like I said, it's not a very big room. So I go and he goes, "So you got to have other people fight your battles, huh?" And I said, "Listen," I said, "No, and he says, like, just save it." He just cut me off. He says, "I'm going to MSU. There's a minimum security. There's MSU and MSB, minimum security building." He was getting his level, his custody lowered, and he was getting to which is actually a improvement on your status as concerning closed custody. Offers you more movement and different things in way of more time out in the yard, just more freedom. So he says, so I'm not even going to mess that up. So about 2 or 3 weeks later, he was gone, and once he was gone, because these other two, Walt and I forgot the other guy's name, because he ended up moving out. That was basically just a neutral cell, because it was right in front of the bubble. And that's what they used that for. They would keep people in there permanently too, but they would keep a bunk open, and they would use it to wait for a place to be open, and they would move them around, because again, they had there was the observation deal. And that's why, like I said, I first dabbled in the Ouija board, which I would never recommend anybody to do, because it absolutely is a portal to a demonic dimension. Absolutely. Just like over here in the forest with them lights and the Sasquatch and all that. It's just Rephaim, some kind of a Nephilim I'm still haven't got quite the whole, but I'm gonna tell you some amazing things about what I've experienced over there. When I told that fella at the airport at Austin that I've never seen one, well, they didn't have to, because I've had so many experiences. I might as well have. It might as well have been just like someone said, "Oh, like Harry and the Hendersons" a few years ago, and I laughed and I said, "Yeah, yeah, pretty much," and it is. But I think the Lord had kept me from seeing him. I believe the Lord had protected me from. But anyway, I won't go in. It's not like we're buddies and I go over and I feed them and blow them, the flute, and we dance and sing. It ain't like that. It's the Lord made it real clear these aren't your friends, and I would have never even believed I would even be discussing that. So I just give you a little taster there, and actually met somebody that's seen one and actually believe the encounter, Adon, Chito, when I was in Shelton this last time when I was falsely imprisoned. The one that fell in Vancouver, the same place I ended up going to at Larch Mountain, which is in Yakult. And guess who's in it? Speaking of Sasquatch, see, you can't make this up. Who's in Yakult? Germer. Wes Germer. He was going to interview me years ago when I was going to tell him this amazing story about what had happened, the things I experienced over here in this forest. I know for a fact there was two of them. But anyway, Adon seen one, and he said I could share it with you guys. That's why there's some things I won't share, because like I said, he trusted me, and I'm not. I just don't do that. If people confide in me, and by rights, that's how we earn trust. So. Let's see, where was I, folks? So here I am. He's out. Now, me and my Walt, we're getting along great. And we are playing cards, Tonk. Don't have much in the way of TV or anything like that. We're one of the low budget cells. I don't have nobody that's really sending me any money. I'm not asking anybody for anything. I'm wanting to do this on my own. And, I really didn't. Another thing I'd like to bring up, I really didn't feel in the back of my mind, you wouldn't know this, but looking back now, I didn't feel like I even deserved to have a treat. I would give my desserts away and I would trade them for fruit. And that probably helped me out a lot, the fiber and stuff. But after getting some good solid mental health counseling, I realized that not only was I a self-sabotager, but like, for instance, I'm going to give you, for instance, when I was in Sherman Brisky Boys Ranch, when I got sent to Brisky Canyon, when I started protesting Gene's little sick, twisted conduct, when he would tell Lonnie Bean and me and a few other the younger ones scary stories so that we'd climb into his bed. I gotta pick up where I left off because my grandson's here and I apologize. I got sidetracked. Let's see. Walt Nagunst. Walt. The TV. No TV. Didn't ask anybody for anything. Anyway, just lived did basically artwork for extra stamps to maybe write to certain people. I basically just kind of just kept to myself. Spoke to Omar and Ladio. Ladio Ortiz was there. He was also one of the ones that would go and score stuff for Ben Pearl when we'd go out to, who ended up dying. He got out of Walla Walla, got a job at Tudor River Boys Ranch, and then would get us kids wrapped up in that stuff down there in Tacoma, and then he gets fired and ends up going back to Walla Walla, and isn't that nuts? He ends up dying with a needle in his arm in Walla Walla. And then I end up in Walla Walla, and Ladio, who was in Mission Creek, and Ben Pearl was his counselor, and he was scoring dope for him. And down in the streets, it's just crazy, crazy on how it all just kind of ties together. But like I said, it would really it does it surprises me, like the other day when I'm seeing other people. That's what really gets me excited, when I'm seeing it's manifesting in other people. With me, it just doesn't, because I've kind of experienced it all my life, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but these last 5 years, whew, man, the intensity and frequency is really increasing. But yeah, Wes Germer and meeting Adon is just amazing. It's incredible. So here I am, Walla Walla. Uh, I used to have, long hair back then. I just started wearing long hair again. I went to short hair. I might go back to short hair. Sometimes I'll cut it off. I do like wearing short hair, but I had long hair back then. And I would go up. They had a really good barber shop, and the convicts up there, they'd give you, they would let them use straight razors. Of course, back then, they had the old razors where you would twist the bottom, the little door would open on top, and you would drop the double-edged little thin razors in, and then twist down the. That's what they would issue you in Walla Walla, and they would give you those razor blades. And when I first got into population, I thought, are you serious? We're in prison, and they're just giving out these razor blades. And of course, you could smoke back then, and they'd give you top tobacco, and bugler was only like 37 cents, and matches and stuff like that. So, people had fires going in their rooms and roasting. It was a city. It was like 4,800 people, I believe, if I had that correct. And Blood Alley had just started slowing down. I really think the good Lord I got there in '90, and not like in the '70s or early '80s. Woo wee! Thank you, Jesus. I mean, it was so. I seen a lot of stuff. I don't want to glorify anything, but I seen a lot of stuff. I seen people pacing off the yard looking for their welding rods that they would shim, so when they stuck somebody with it, they could just bust it off. They would pace the yard, so many paces, and then pace this way, and then kind of put that welding rod and try to stay out of the sight of the crow's nests that are up in the watchtowers, and slide that down into the grass, into the same exact yard that I walked just months ago. And they would go back when they needed them, if they had a beef with somebody, and I'd seen it, and it wasn't pretty. And they would pace off, and they'd sit down, and you'd see them. You wouldn't know if people were just sitting in the big yard, just visiting, because people had a bunch of different stuff going on. And Papa's doing a video. Can we talk a little bit later, baby boy?
Hey, Papa.
What? I'll be out. Give me 7 minutes.
Please.
I'll give me 7 minutes.
Wait.
I'll be out in 7 minutes, baby. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here in a minute, and I will finish the deal in Walla Walla maybe a little bit later this evening or tomorrow morning. Love you guys. Have a blessed evening. I'm gonna go play with my grandson.